it's wine bar material, but why not?
Actually, the people that are sipping wine, I played at this wine bar recently, and it's like an older crowd, and they're just kind of going, wow, that's like, wow, really from the heart. I'm like, yeah.
That's one thing about drinking wine is it does kind of bring that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't switch.
How do you know?
I wouldn't.
You just read it in a book somewhere.
If nothing else,
I can't drink anything because it gives me a migraine. I make a lousy rock star. I've never had a beer in my life.
Really?
Never. I can't stand this stuff. I'd make a great Christian, if but it's all backwards. But no, I can't drink a glass of wine. Wow, migraine.
Headaches and stuff.
Besides that, I was going to say this earlier too. There's this going back to the Christian music thing. This is cool. It's all good. That's fine. A lot of our peers were kind of born and brought up and raised in a church environment, and I think, especially in a Protestant, I was too, but not Protestant. There was a big difference. My family was Italian Catholic, so I came up hearing about Vatican II, not Jimmy Swaggart, or any of those old-time Southern revivalists and all that stuff. I had no idea who those guys were. But there's also a musical sociology that comes along with that too. The Imperials or the Gaithers and
Southern gospel.
Yeah, all that old-time gospel stuff. Yeah. I just didn't have any root or warming in that stuff. I think it has a huge influence, probably even today, on how we think about that business and that industry. I don't know if this means anything to me. It's interesting.
Well, the cottage industry aspect of it and the independent aspect of that was forged by all those guys, where they were going around to churches, performing. They didn't all have record deals with big labels. Some of them did, but they also had their own custom labels. They developed the whole idea of touring in a bus. And then I remember going to one of those all-night things when I was a kid, in 1964. And all the merch was on the table, the bus was parked outside, they signed the autographs, they did everything that we ended up doing later. And so without those guys, kind of forging that road, I don't think rock and roll would have been the same. And especially because Elvis Presley leaned so heavily on that as an influence. Right. He brought Southern gospel into the mainstream. And that's why his records don't sound like any others from the period. Because they had an element that was quite set apart from what was happening. So I've never, it's impossible to gainsay, I think, the importance of that. Even though, I always cringe when I think about it because I was forced to listen to it as a kid, and it was associated with religious church music and stuff like that. But if you just look at it as an independent art form in and of itself, that's a uniquely American. I think it can't be ignored. I think it was important. But I had to kind of get some distance from it to see it sociologically and professionally, as well as the fact that my father and his friends all liked it.
Yeah, I see it even today with, again, some of our peers tend to latch on to secular groups that are Christians. U2, Bruce Coburn, The Alarm, all that gang of,
Well, and you got to use the term Christian loosely when you're talking about all those people. Because
don't you agree that a lot of our peers and people that buy our records are also big on those groups?
Absolutely.
I kind of scratch my head thinking, well, yeah, they're all fantastic, no doubt about it. But is it just coincidence that you're listening to secular artists that always have a Christian bent? Does it mean nobody else has anything to say? Or you just haven't exposed yourself to it yet? Or maybe you have, and because they're not Christian, you dismiss it somehow? Which I think is a bad mistake. And I think it's the last thing you said. I would agree with that. I think, once you become part of the Christian church, it's real easy to just say, this is my clan, and this is what we do. Yeah. And we just don't go outside of these walls. And there's safety in this little thing, but it's so confining, you know, so.
Well, think of how common the misconception was, and I've heard this, we've all heard this 1,000 times. When a person comes to faith, they suddenly feel like they have to completely purge and get rid of everything they were about before that. And then they're grabbing for something to be able to be okay with and relate to. And it was always Amy Grant, God bless her, you know. She'd be the one, you know, or Michael W. Smith, those people, right? And then they're going, well, okay, I guess, you know. And then they would discover us, right, or you guys, or some of our peers, and they'll go, thank God you saved me from Amy Grant. And after a while, I was feeling like, you know, I didn't get into this game in order to save people from Amy Grant. You know, that's a terrible thing to have to say or even do. You know, I love Amy Grant. You know, I think she's a great singer, she's a great person. She's fine, but the fact that these people were set up like bowling pins, paragons of faith, and that someone coming in as sort of a clean vessel, if you were, where they just completely get rid of the old and the new is that, I always found that was just, it was just really disappointing. And I hope that isn't happening today, but it probably is in one way or another. It's just that happened to be for our generation. You know, those were the people that were sort of held up as safe, and this is a way to express your faith. And you know, I think that was a lot of what we were doing, whether we were not, was trying to, you know, no, that's not what it's about. It wasn't about us either. It's just we were trying to find our way and learn how to be good artists, you know.
I mean, I think our bands hit it at a really strategic time. Not that like we could have planned it or anything, but I'm sure you get a lot of fan mail. Still, I do. You know, about just how meaningful it was. You know,
yeah,
that there was it was really meaningful, and it's like, this was where I was at when I was that age, and I could latch onto it. And thank you. You know, it's just. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing in that regard. You know, we were just kind of doing our thing, but. When there were things we couldn't even, I get email, I'm sure you do too, that people thank us for things that I could not even imagine. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know you needed saving from Amy Grant because I didn't know there was such a thing as that.
Right.
You know. I said this in that same book earlier that, you know, maybe this is true of the record or this idea of engaging with my own songwriting. I feel like the struggle for me is when I'm writing the stuff and when I'm putting it together, orchestrating it, arranging it, and all that stuff. Those are my deepest, darkest moments with the material. But the most meaningful moments with my own material are when it's alone, when I'm working on it. And then when it's done, it's done. It doesn't belong to me anymore almost. You put it out there and it belongs to the world. And now it's there, and now it's their turn to bring themselves to it. And I find that when I just keep my lips sealed, you know, avoid answering the question, well, what does this mean? Or what does that one line mean? You know, more often than not, the best answer for that is, well, what does it mean to you? Yeah. And I get some of the most outrageous, spectacular, fantastic stories and testimonies about what that line or this verse or that song or this record meant to somebody. So I don't know. You know, I feel this way about your record too. Yeah. No, I came back from a wedding reception, gave 3 people a ride, played some of the tracks. On one particular song, one that Ali sings a solo on, great job. It's called "The Ghost That You Are." 3 different interpretations, and they're all, "What does it mean? What does it mean?" I said, "Whatever you want." Yeah. You know, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to you? And they were all legit interpretations, and none of them were exactly what I meant. So it's as if there's a right answer. Yeah. There's one line that I write in a journal that I teach my students, that our job is to tell the emotional truth, not necessarily the literal truth. And that's a songwriting challenge. But when we do that, we tap into the emotional truth. We've removed the focus off of facts and figures of what's right and wrong, which Christian music likes to go there a lot, you know. But we start talking about the emotional truth, what this process was like for me. And now it's not about necessarily expressing the tenets of my faith. or the things that I believe. Now it's all about, this is how I wrestle with these things, with my own humanity, given how I think and feel about things, what I believe. So, with that framework, I think it was very easy to work with your songs, because I'm not thinking about, well, I don't agree with this, and that's not part of my worldview anymore, so, grumph. It's really more about that. What emotional truth is Bill telling you? And we tap into that musically somehow.
Yeah. So what happened?
Well, if nothing else, this is a great example of how we should all behave. Why can't we agree to disagree and still love?
All we are saying is,
Well, who says we can't? I
Is
mean,
this-
we all get riled up, but we've all been through this before, haven't we? Giving each other noogies and even disagreeing with the way
We did it back in the day when we were in the thick of it.
I'm doing a little project right now, and hopefully Joe's going to play. I'm just releasing some band songs, and Gary Olson, the drummer from Undercover, said, it's really nice to see you and Joe working together again. You guys used to fight a lot. I'm like, is that what people think? I guess it was kind of true. But I mean, this is great. This is just like, whatever happened then, who cares? We're friends, and we disagree, but we love music together, we respect each other. So
I wouldn't disagree. Change those, what was it, 4 years, I guess?
Yeah.
Wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, you guys were young.
we were. And now we're not.
It dawned on me that I'm the youngest in the group here. He's being
Well,
sensitive.
just barely.
I'll
but take it.
I'll take it.
Yeah, Jay.
All right, well then that leads to the glaring, obvious
Question.
question. How close are we to grabbing a couple of the other guys and having Undercover together again?
Well, now it does get into the worldview thing, because Undercover means things to people. And I think my days of getting up on stage has nothing to do with the people. I love all the guys. And musically, it's magic, but in terms of doing what Undercover did in the context of a church service or something like that, it's just not going to happen. In fact, the last few times that we played have been disappointing from that point of view. And I walked away from the last one saying, that's it, I'm done, I'm not doing that anymore. However, as you know, we're thinking now of doing the secular venues where it's just about great bands doing great stuff. And I've written a lot about, well, if you don't believe anymore, what about Undercover? How can you get up on stage and play those songs? And there's easy answers to that. Those songs are not mine. They belong to everybody else. And if I can help someone tap into any good thing that those songs had anything to do with, I'm all for it. And plus, there's 3 other guys in the band that I want to serve. It's not just about me and what I believe. Having said all that, it's not going to be Undercover like it used to be, if it is at all. But,
Well, how long has it been since it was Undercover like it used to be anyway? I mean, you guys were evolving and changing, even as you were active, popular, productive, making records together as a group, even if it was periodic.
yeah, I mean, the last time we played you were there. Was that gig in Corona 10 years ago, or was it?
Was it a tribute thing?
Was that after the 25-year?
It was the 25-year thing, so that was 2001.
Was that the one that dawned?
11 or something? I don't
Yeah,
remember.
Yeah. And it seemed to be, wasn't there some trouble, like some controversy or?
Yeah, there was, and I've just had enough of that.
Well, that's unfortunate that happened then, but there probably are situations that you could create if you guys ever did want to play together that wouldn't invite or stir up that kind of problem.
Exactly.
Is that what I'm
having
hearing
said
you
that,
saying?
So, Jim Nicholson's doing a solo record that Rick Alba played bass on, Gary drummed on, I did the producing and the keyboards. We've got Bill's record, and we're all loving working together in these capacities. I don't feel that there's any overarching need for it to be Undercover. people will listen to Jim's record and say, oh, that sounds like, that has moments of undercover.
No kidding.
Because it
It
does,
is,
you know,
yeah, it
it's
is.
who we are, but it's not an undercover record. I'm having a blast, you know, probably like you are working with the choir and Terry and all those guys, just working with people I love on good stuff. Good enough for me.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks to the
Gee,
crew
they
here.
run out of tape.
We're done. Adios.
God, that was so long.